Oh, it's great.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Portsmouth City Council regular meeting for Monday, May 3rd, 2010. At this time, I would like to ask if the city clerk would be kind enough to call the roll.
Mayor Farini?
Here.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne?
Here.
Councilor Lister?
Here.
Councilor Hetmanic?
Here.
Councilor Spear?
Here.
Councilor Dwyer?
Here.
Councilor Coviello?
Here.
Councilor Kennedy?
Here.
Councilor Smith?
Here.
This time, I would like to ask if the Assistant Mayor would lead us in a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move forward with the National Police Week and Peace Officers Memorial Day proclamation, I just would like to mention for the record here at the beginning of the meeting, as opposed to at the end, that we have a rather busy week next week, and I just wanted to point that out for the public. We have a reconvened budget public hearing on Monday, May 10th, and then Tuesday, and that will be at 7 o'clock. I'm sorry, yes, 7 o'clock at Portsmouth High School. And then Tuesday, May 11th, in this chamber, we will begin the process of our work session to try and put together the budget. So, though we have a meeting tonight, the agenda is not a long one, but for those fans of City Council work, next week will be a busy one, and I'm just making sure that everyone is aware of those dates so you can make it to the public hearing on May 10th. We would, the reconvening, we certainly would welcome you. Thank you. Now, at this time, I would like to ask, first, we're going to recognize Detective Cashman, and we have a number of individuals from the police department present. Detective, if you want to come to the podium, and then we'll have Councilor Smith read the National Police Week and Peace Officers Memorial Day proclamation, after which we will we'll present you with the proclamation, and I understand you wish to say a few words.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. A proclamation. Whereas Congress and the President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, in a week in which falls in National Police Week, and whereas the members of the Portsmouth Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Portsmouth and the state of New Hampshire, and whereas it is important for all citizens to know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, sacrifice of their police department, and whereas the members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression, and whereas the men and women of the Portsmouth Police Department essentially provide an essential public service. Now, therefore, I, Thomas G. Farini, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, on behalf of the members of the City Council, do hereby call on all citizens of Portsmouth and upon all patriotic civil education organizations to observe the week of May 9th and May 15th, 2010 as Police Week in Portsmouth, and appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating all law enforcement officers, past, present, and who, by faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered the dedicated service of the communities, and in doing so have established themselves an enduring reputation for preserving the rights and citizens of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of Portsmouth to observe May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all law enforcement officers who through courageous deeds have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in performing their duty. Let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes in lowering all city, state, and American flags in Portsmouth to half-staff on Saturday, May 15th, given by my hand in the seal of the City of Portsmouth on the 3rd day of May 2010. Thomas G. Farini, Mayor of Portsmouth.
Thank you, Councilor Smith. There's your proclamation.
My name is Detective Timothy Cashman, and I've worked for the City of Portsmouth since January of 1996. I'm also president of the Portsmouth Police Relief Association, and it is with pride I accept this proclamation on all the members' behalf. Gil Landry was a Maine State Trooper who was killed March 31st, 1989, when he decided to answer the call of a domestic disturbance in Leeds, Maine, while on his way home one Friday afternoon. Upon his arrival at the residence, the suspect's girlfriend ran into his unmarked patrol car and quickly got into the passenger seat. Detective Landry described the scene to the responding troopers who, knowing the suspect, urged him to back out and get out of there. The suspect then approached the vehicle from the rear and fired twice through the rear window with a Ruger .44 caliber rifle, striking Detective Landry and killing him instantly. He then walked around to the passenger side door and shot and killed his girlfriend before committing suicide. Detective Landry served the agency for 13 years and was survived by his wife and daughter. I know this story well because Gil was my cousin. His father and my mother were brother and sister growing up. And he used to allow me to sit in his cruiser and turn the lights on. And for any kid, that was a pretty big deal, not just one that was interested in police work. The day I went to his funeral, I made a decision that I would go into police work, a decision my mother was not thrilled with, but she seems to have come around now. I don't expect you or anyone else watching or listening to remember Gil's name or his story, or the name of Sergeant Joseph Bergeron, the latest officer to die in the line of duty in this country. He was a 26-year veteran of the Maplewood, Minnesota Police Department and was murdered May 1st by a suspect he confronted in regards to a carjacking. I'm certain that his wife and twin daughters will always remember him as my family remembers Gil. I don't know exactly what it is about the people here, what you find important to remember about the officers of the Portsmouth Police Department. I do hope that you remember that this proclamation that we read was signed into law by President Kennedy back in 1962. The fact about the flags, it's only one of 3 holidays that the flag must be down from sunrise to sunset, and that was amended by President Clinton. The details are not as important as the fact that we in here in Portsmouth are extremely lucky to have never suffered the same numbing losses our brother and sister officers in Franconia and Manchester and Epsom and the state police have had to endure recently. In closing, I would ask that you keep this proclamation in mind when you deliberate on what to cut and not to cut. It's our safety as well as the safety of the citizens watching us from home that you are affecting. Most importantly, I would ask that you keep this proclamation in mind when you think of the families of the 37 deceased officers in New Hampshire who went to work one day and never came home simply because of the career they chose. We've also, before I forget, we've invited all of you to the Portsmouth Police Awards Banquet, which is this Saturday night. And I know Councilor Heck-Monack, you came last year, and Councilor Smith, you came, and we'd be honored to have all you there. So join us at the Elks. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Detective, and thanks to the Portsmouth Police Department and our state police departments for their commitment and service to our community and their courage. Thank you very much. We next move on to the annual report of ArtSpeak, and I hear today from ArtSpeak we have Jane James and Executive Director Sue Cobbler. Jane, if you care to report.
Good evening. I just emptied the room. I'm sorry. Did a little bit about accomplishments and finish with something on a light note, I hope. ArtSpeak's accomplishments. We are on the verge of mounting overnight art for the 3rd time. This time the theme is bridges. Think bridges over the Piscataqua, think bridges from city government to the community, think bridges funding solutions throughout the region for donations, etc. 21 artists submitted proposals for 6 commissions. 5 will be in town, with 1 out at Pease, which is a new thing for us, the corner of International Drive and Corporate Drive. We've raised $25,000 for this endeavor, most notably with the exceptions of a $6,000 donation and a $5,000 contribution. The remaining amounts were substantially single individuals between $100 to $500. These folks value the quality of life we have and want to support the efforts to preserve these qualities. It must seem you are accepting money on our behalf frequently. That's accurate, but the individual amounts are modest for the most part from everyday citizens. Our youth and education. ArtSpeak secured a grant from the New Hampshire State Council that funded Artworks, which has been introduced to the Portsmouth Middle School students to local careers in the arts by creating partnerships between the school district locally and locally owned and run businesses and local artists, all of whom are contributing to the greater Portsmouth creative economy. ArtSpeak celebrated Youth Art Month, which was in March, by arranging for the students' art to be displayed in downtown businesses. This is the second year we have effected that show, and judging by the reaction of the businesses and the students, this will go on for some time to come. Public art. The ArtSpeak developed and presented Fired Up, a symposium to celebrate Portsmouth's first new permanent public art piece in 20 years. ArtSpeak has also developed an art acquisition policy for the city. This will assist the city in going forward when offers of donations are made of art to the city. There is a context as to how to evaluate those donations and assess their value and recommend placement. Though budgetary constraints quashed our 1% for art at the fire station 2, it should be noted that we received 38 proposals from artists all across the country for that before it was terminated. Just in general about our cultural community, and I know I've left some people out, but these are the things that came to my mind. As of July last year, the Portsmouth Museum of Fine Arts opened. Vintage Christmas, a collaboration with Strawberry Bank and the Music Hall and local businesses, was cited in the Boston Globe as, quote, one of the top 10 things not to be missed in New England. Strawberry Bank also partnered with Harbor Lights Productions to present Lamplight Diaries, being presented again just this month, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays through the 23rd of May. And I know if you're on the council, you really want to go to this. It's great, interesting history. And I know I've been here a long time because as I went to it, I was saying, I don't remember it like that. So it's been a long time since, in lots of, actually fairly recent history. So if you can go, you'd love it. And take whoever you'd like. The music hall quietly and capably raised almost $9 million towards their goal of a $13 million goal to complete renovations and restorations to the hall itself in the new space at the loft on Congress Street. They, too, found that much of those funds was raised from everyday individuals concerned about maintaining the cultural economic engine. Seacoast Rep purchased the Mill Pond Center, which will allow for increased programming, rehearsal space, and education. The Discover Center, under the aegis of the Portsmouth Historical Society, the Discover Center has opened as a full-service visitor center. It has hosted events with subjects from opera to slave trade. They also co-occupy their space with the African American Cultural Center and the Star Island Corp. Though many organizations have reduced employees, numbers, and spending, lights are on, there is someone home at most of these cultural venues. Pontine Theater and the New Hampshire Theater Project continue their successful co-occupancy at West on Islington Street. The Players' Ring remains vital and an active presence on the cultural landscape. And per one of our local publications, quote, the growth of Seacoast theater community has been mirrored by swelling interest from local audiences. But even with demand on the rise, many theater venues are struggling to cover their costs. This holds true for all of our cultural organizations, large and small. And I would like to end with a story that I heard at a gathering a few years ago. If you've heard it, bear with me. There was a contest, and there was a little old lady, and I don't presume to be the little old lady, and there was a strong man, and it was a lemon squeezing contest. And the strong man went first, and he squeezed the lemon, and he got about a quarter of a cup of lemon juice. And next it became the little lady's time to, and she had to take the same lemon and she squeezed it again, and she got a half a cup. And the strong man said, "I can't believe it. How did you do that? You're much smaller than I." She said, "It's simple. I've been working for nonprofits all my life, so I know how to do it." Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you to you and your board, and Sue and any volunteers. We much appreciate the help you've provided to our community and our cultural community. Next, we have before us the minutes for for April 14th and April 19th. Does anyone care to extract anything in particular from the minutes? If not,
So moved to accept?
we have a motion to accept. Council Coviello.
April 19th, I have a correction.
Okay.
Sorry. Page 7. Motion passed 8-1. It was Councilor Coviello who voted opposed.
Okay.
All righty.
And I'll second the motion.
Noted with the change. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. It's unanimous. We next have public comment. We have one speaker this evening, Mr. Mark Brighton, and who well knows the rules. We have 3 minutes. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, Mr. Sullivan will hold up the sign indicating that, and thank you at 3 minutes. And with that, welcome, and please proceed. State your name and address.
My name is Mark Brighton, 285 Union Street. I am sure I will speak well under 3 minutes. I want to ask the same question I asked at the last public hearing. And now, granted, it was late. We were all tired. I was tired. I'm sure you were all tired. But I would like to ask it again. And that question was, is there a good reason why the public does not have access to the Excel files from which this current budget is being developed? The administrators are acting within the letter of the law by providing them in a PDF format, but they are certainly not acting within the spirit of the law. It's my money. It's your money. It's the public's money. We deserve to have this information in a form that is convenient, not in a form that is most convenient for the administrators. And I would ask the council to direct that these files be released. And lastly, I would say that an inaction on this is an action. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to our next portion of the agenda, which is approval of grants and donations. And item A, the only item under that portion, is a New Hampshire Public Health Network grant in the amount of $70,000. The action being requested would be a 2-year grant from the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services for the purpose of funding the ongoing public health and emergency planning work for the Greater Portsmouth Public Health Network retroactively, effective March 31, 2010. It's a $70,000 amount.
So moved.
We have motion
Second.
to accept and authorize city manager by Councilor Smith, seconded by Councilor Coviello. Discussion. Councilor Kennedy.
I have a quick question, and that's more to do with Portsmouth taking the lead on a lot of these things. And this is for the city manager. Is there any additional cost that we're taking by being the leader in a grant like this?
We recover administrative costs on these.
Okay, so everything's recovered, and
Yeah, and we have the advantage of having, for example, we have the public health nurse that we have here. We've utilized the public health nurse to administer vaccines to our employees, the H1N1 vaccine. We have had, in the past, we've had additional, the coordinator, which we have not yet replaced, and we're now evaluating that. But when we did have the coordinator, she was able to write us additional grants that we're able to bring in and support the fire department on their emergency role. So it really is a win-win for us. And quite frankly, the state health department has encouraged us to take the lead.
and I'm not just disputing, especially with the state having their issues. They
Yeah.
encourage a lot of communities to take lead. I was just making sure that it wasn't costing us extra to take the lead.
No, I think we're able to recover our administrative costs, plus have other benefits associated to it.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? It's unanimous. We have 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. If no one cares to remove something for separate consideration at this time, I'll read them both. Acceptance of a donation from Norman M. and Elizabeth T. Henderson to the Portsmouth Fire Department for the CO2 Fund, $200. to accept and approve. The other is item B, donations to Art Speak, overnight art sponsorship, total of $3,292.50. Bayring Communications, $2,500. Hilton Garden Inn, Parade Hotel LLC, $500. Conway Office Products, Jeffrey Feenstra, $100. Ellen Feinberg, $100. And First Giving, $92.50. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
None opposed, it's unanimous, and thanks for those contributions to Art Speak overnight art sponsorship. Next, we move to item 9, presentation and consideration of written communications and petitions. The first is a letter from Attorney Thomas Watson requesting the issuance of a revocable license to David J. and Vasilia Tooley for the property located at 166 Newcastle Avenue to allow for the continued placement of encroachments within the city limits rights of way. The motion would be to authorize the issuance of a revocable license to David and Vasilia Tooley for that property. You have it in your package before you. We have the motion. Do we have a second? Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
None opposed. That's unanimous. Item B, a letter from Jennifer Mast requesting permission to donate a granite bench to the city in honor of her father, Tom Mast, for installation along the water of Pierce Island facing the northwest views of the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. And this would typically be moved to the city manager with power.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Discussion.
Your Honor, what I probably do is, in conjunction with this, I'll just touch base with the Pierce Island Committee, Everett Kern, have Everett talk to Pierce Island Committee and see if that location seems to be acceptable to them.
Very good. So, any further discussion? Thank you for that additional explanation. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. That's unanimous. We move to item 10, reports and communications from city officials, city manager and city manager's items which require action. Item 1.
Thank you, Your Honor. What I'd like to do for the first item is I'd like to have, actually the first two items, is to have Rick Tainter come down and speak to these issues. First being a report back from Planning Board regarding request to place the relocated Seabrook Station siren pole at the former Department of Public Works facility within the conservation easement. And Rick?
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. This is, as noted in the report, a request to relocate the siren pole a short distance southeast from its current location. It was originally proposed to be located in a different portion of the site to get out of the way of a city utility easement. And then the city's utility project changed and got aimed at the proposed location of the siren pole, so it needed to be relocated again. The only reason that it comes before you is that when the city disposed of the site, it retained what was called a conservation easement. It was not conservation in the sense of a wetlands area or anything like that. It's basically a vegetative buffer to protect the neighbors on Aldrich Road from any impacts from the development of the site. So it's the area between Chevrolet Avenue and the Aldrich Road properties is supposed to be retained in its vegetative state, and no structure is to be built. And obviously the siren pole is a structure, so in order to make this happen, there needs to be a change in the conditions of the conservation easement. And that is the request. It was reviewed by the Planning Board, and the Planning Board recommended in favor of this.
So if everyone understands the requested action, we need a motion in accordance therewith before we can begin discussion. Does anyone care to
Make the
offer a
motion to recommend the report of the Planning Board.
Thank you, Councilor Smith. Do we have a second? Thank you, Councilor Spear. Discussion. Inquiry. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. It's unanimous. Item 2.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next item is report back from the Planning Board requesting rezone lots on Sagamore Grove from waterfront business to mixed residential business or single residence B. And I'd like to have Rick speak to this issue.
Thank you. In your packet, you have the reduced version of these two maps, and I just brought them here for reference. This is as you probably know much better than I do, the history of this area, which was rezoned from a residential use to waterfront business, I believe, back in the mid-'60s. And over the years, there have been small waterfront businesses there, but it's primarily a residential area. It was a summer cottage area, I believe, that originally became converted to year-round residences. There are 6 residences, 3 on the water side of Sagamore Grove Road and 3 on the land side. We looked at a number of possibilities for how to perhaps rezone this. The applicant had, or the petitioners had, who were the 3 waterfront lots, had requested either mixed residence business or single residence B. Single residence B is the zoning across the creek. And it seemed to make more sense. It brought more properties into conformance with the zoning. Almost all of them, or all of them are non-conforming by use, and most of them are non-conforming in a variety of dimensional ways as well. So this reduced the, eliminated the use non-conformance and reduced the dimensional non-conformances. The mixed residence business we recommended against because it would have allowed a much higher intensity of development on the site, more coverage, taller buildings, et cetera, and basically a doubling of residential density. So the report with recommendations from the planning board is that the land be rezoned, those 6 parcels be rezoned from waterfront business to single residence B, leaving essentially 4 parcels on that side of Sagamore Ave and the creek, basically the Freedom Boat Club to the west, Witch Cove Marina to the east, and 2 vacant parcels on Wentworth Road to the south.
Okay, does everyone understand that which has been explained? Let's get a motion on the floor, and then we
Your
can
Honor,
begin
this-
with inquiry.
This would be to just authorize to bring back for first read, to accept the report and bring back for first reading at May 17th meeting.
Yep.
Any changes.
Second.
So we have a motion to accept and bring back for first reading. We have a motion, we have a second, we have a question. Councilor Kennedy.
2 questions, Rick. One is, why didn't the other 2 residents agree to it? It says 4 out of the 6.
I'm sorry, what's the question again? We had no response from 2 of the residents, I guess if that's your question. We had 3 petitioners on the water side, and then 1 petitioner, Mr. Allen, on the land side, spoke in favor of it, and the other 2 petitioners did not speak for or against.
And just to clarify that once this becomes residential, single residence, that means that there can be no traps, no fishing from that, right?
No, it doesn't mean that, because you could do a non-commercial. You could, if you were doing your own, like as a lobsterman doing your own traps, you couldn't do a commercial landing, but you could do non-commercial storage of traps and so forth.
Okay, so you couldn't do any commercial landing, and
Correct.
in my brief research of this, that was one of the reasons it was kept commercial, because of that particular aspect of things.
Yes.
Because it is one of some of our last deep water areas. So I would hope the council keeps that all in mind. I was more in favor of the mixed use just because I think we should still allow for that.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Clayburgh.
I just had a question, sort of going back to what Councilor Kennedy just said. In this petition that you enclosed in the packet, only 3 homeowners signed the petition. Were the other 3 notified of the possible change?
Oh,
or
yes.
do we have a process by which we do that?
The representative, the person who was representing the 3 petitioners scheduled a public, or not a public meeting, scheduled a meeting, invited all the petitioners to a meeting. I don't believe any of the 3 on the land side came to the meeting, but they were all notified through the public notice process, through the public hearing, the planning board public hearing notice.
Okay. And then my second question is that the 2 other parcels to the left of what's now yellow, or what would be yellow, what did you say that was? Is that those? MRV. Why aren't they, I guess my question is, why aren't they interested in changing also?
These parcels?
Yes.
This is 1 parcel, and this is the Freedom Boat Club, so it's actually an active waterfront
okay,
use at this point, waterfront business use. Right. And then this is the Witch Cove Marina over here.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't get that.
Councilor Dwyer.
To build on Councilor Kennedy's question, a use would potentially be allowable if the Board of Adjustment allowed it.
Yes.
I mean, that's...
anything's allowed. The Board of Adjustment can allow anything, yes.
Right, and as I remember, this has been one of those things that the Board of Adjustment has been going around on for a long time as these things have come forth. So
And this really started because the Board of Adjustment denied a variance for a property owner, and so the property owner then pursued the rezoning aspect instead.
Can I just ask a question? And maybe you've already answered it. Why is the planning board, and I presume you're representing what they've recommended, why are they recommending this? What's the reason?
I would say the reason is a recognition that it hasn't been waterfront business. Most of the lots have never been waterfront business. One of them or two of them were in the past, but haven't been for many years. And the realities of the marketplace is it's going to be very hard to convert. Once you've converted to a permanent year-round home, it just doesn't go back. And that kind of also in response to Councillor Kennedy's question about losing waterfront business, one of the suggestions that was made was to allow residential use in the waterfront business district. And we know that if that happened, the remaining waterfront business down in the downtown area, which is very small, would basically disappear as residential.
Councillor Spear.
I was originally against making these changes for the reasons actually outlined in the creation of the waterfront business district was to promote maritime usage of the business usage, commercial usage of our waterfront, which, you know, is a scarce resource. However, what convinced me to support this plan, and I think it's the right one, was looking at the history of this particular parcel here. And it was laid out very nicely. When the zoning first occurred, 1927, I think it was general residence. And it was that way for 40 years until they changed it in 1965 to waterfront business. So there's been, the buildings have, except for one instance, have always been residential, okay? So there's been a 45-year attempt in this spot to try to encourage waterfront business. And I think even though I want in my heart to have that type of business there and along other WB districts, I could see that 45 years to me, that was a very good attempt. And in the meantime, we're prohibiting people from improving their properties in a reasonable way as people who live there. So with that in mind and I think only speak for myself on the planning board, that's what I was thinking.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
What would be, and this may be a question, what would be the detriments to making it mixed use, though?
There was a density issue. The setbacks and the lot usage are much lower with a single residence B as you can get. And that road that goes back in there, and I guess actually let the planning director talk about that road. It's an interesting road.
Well, it is an interesting road because it's not continuous. It's an easement over private land across the property that fronts on Sagamore Avenue, and then there's a small strip of road, this public road, that is just these 6 properties have frontage on. So essentially, they are on a public road that has no connection to any other public road, and it's a very unusual situation. And I think it just reflects the unusual character of this area, which was, as I say, summer cottages, and I think originally there were several houses on one lot, and the lot was originally subdivided around the houses. So it's a very odd area. In terms of the alternatives, we were just concerned that the mixed residence business, which I believe is the adjacent zoning district that the petitioners were looking for as an alternative, would just allow a doubling of the residential density. So in terms of land area, right now you've got 6 houses. Theoretically, with the mixed residential business, you could divide each of those into two units, which would be very high residential density for a very substandard street.
At this point, if there isn't, thank you, significant, I mean, we're moving for first reading, then we're going to have second reading and third reading. So I allowed latitude in going forward now simply because it's explicatory for all concerned. At this point, unless there's a burning question, it's not going to vote up or down tonight based on our discussion. So I don't know if anyone actually made the motion.
Yes.
Someone did. Okay, I'm making sure someone did make the motion. Okay, we've had discussion. I'm going to call the question from the chair. Does anyone All right, we're ready to go. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, it's unanimous, and we'll see that back at May 17th.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next item is appointment to Rockingham Planning Commission. Representatives to regional planning commissions will be nominated by the planning board of each municipality from the residents thereof, and shall be appointed by municipal officers of each municipality, which is the city council. The planning board is recommending the following: John Ritchie, planning board chair; Esther Kennedy, city council member; Anthony Belkamsop, planning board; David Moore, community development director. Alternate representatives would be Steve Parkinson, director of public works; Dave Allen, deputy director of public works; Cindy Hayden, deputy city manager; Rick Tainter, planning director.
Okay, you've heard the slate. Anyone care to make a motion to accept the planning board's recommendation?
So move.
Second.
Moved, seconded, discussion.
I have a question.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne.
Does this group get involved with the tax rate that the county sets for?
No.
No? So that's totally,
It's a planning commission.
Separate commission.
okay.
Further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, it's unanimous. Item 4.
The next item is the proposed acceptance of a sidewalk policy as a result of the April 19th City Council meeting, and bring back for acceptance attached brick sidewalk policy reflecting the proposed changes. As you can see, basically, it's similar to what we had last meeting, but it was pointed out to me by the Public Works Department that the Newcastle Avenue sidewalks, when we redid the seawall, we had to put in the concrete sidewalks. So since we don't anticipate replacing those for a number of years, but we thought we'd be consistent and show those as being concrete on the policy itself. But other than that, the policy that was before you at the last meeting is pretty much in place, with the exclusion of Islington Street from brick sidewalks, and also allowing for the council, if there is existing brick outside of the historic district, that would become a separate vote of the city council, and that any material that's used that abuts the historic district, whatever is the majority material, would be used. So the policy is before you, along with the attached map.
We have the policy, we have the map, we understand how it has been amended. Do we have a motion to accept to begin the discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Assistant Mayor. Thank you for the second. Discussion. Councilor Coviello.
I'll be brief. I just think that this isn't the wisest way to spend our taxpayers' dollars. As of December 2009, we have increased the areas in which we'll be having brick sidewalks, and I think we heard from the public that they want a decrease in it. I'll be voting against the motion.
Further discussion.
May?
Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I went around and really looked at some of the areas that already have the brick sidewalks, especially the extension of it in the new addition coming down Lafayette Road, and realized that there's a lot of those areas already do have brick sidewalks that are in good shape and in poor shape, and then the rest seems to be asphalt. So I don't have a problem with extending it down because it is the gateway coming in. The one area that I was wondering about, and that is coming along when you come over the bridge by Cindy Ann Cleaners and you're getting into the Christian Shores area. There doesn't seem to be currently a lot of brick sidewalks. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of newer of the concrete sidewalks there. And I'm wondering, instead of having them being added there going along, since we did just redo a lot of those sidewalks, and you'd have a situation where you go down the road halfway on brick and then go to halfway on concrete, if it would be, so I'll make this as an amendment, to take the Christian Shores area, that
Would
one
you
area.
be specific on streets,
Yeah.
Counselor?
That would be the upper end of Maplewood Avenue, from the bridge, the water bridge coming over the mill pond, coming right up to the ramp, and
I need streets, Your Honor.
Northwest,
Well, let's see if we can.
Northwest Street, Marsh Lane,
Dearborn?
Do you mean
Dearborn.
all of the streets
Dennett's.
contained within that orange portion on the map?
Correct. Just on the would be the
North
west
of the mill pond.
North of the
Correct.
mill pond.
What street are you commencing at?
Starting right at the water bridge on Maplewood Avenue.
It's this orange portion here.
Well, I know it's that orange portion, but I want to be able to reduce it into writing, and so that in a year or two from now, when somebody comes up If that's the
I
amendment,
guess
I
it
want to
would-
make sure we're clear on the amendment, that's all.
I guess it would be where, was it?
Steve, you want to come down and
Vaughn
maybe
Street
give
comes
us a
down?
little hand to maybe just
Be Walker
articulate
Street.
this?
Walker Street.
Where,
School
where
Street.
probably where Vaughn Street and Maplewood Avenue intersect, going all the way out to the ramp on the Route 1 bypass ramp.
Or you can just send it back to us and we can come up with the.
Perhaps to draft this in an open meeting, given that, are there any brick sidewalks impending to go in that neighborhood and expenditures to be made now?
Not at the current time.
Okay, so maybe it would make sense.
I mean, what areas would we be looking at specifically, Steve? If you
I
were to
believe the
cut it up?
counselor is referring to starting on Maplewood Ave by the intersection of Vaughn Street, comes in by Cindy Ann Cleaners.
Yep.
From there, any of the historic district north of that intersection.
So it would be Vaughn Street north?
Correct.
Correct.
So you'd go up Maple Street, and then so you'd stop at Vaughn Street on Maplewood, and then go north.
Correct.
And that would be that whole area in there.
Northwest Street, Marsh Lane, Dennett Street.
Do you
Okay, I
mean,
see what you're saying, okay.
is
just
it
that
the
one
orange
area.
portion of the map on the northern side of the Maplewood Ave Causeway Bridge?
Correct.
It's a little-
Currently, there's a
After you
lot
go
of
over the
brand-new
bridge.
sidewalks that are there, and
It's
they're all
not north,
concrete.
technically, probably.
I don't think we have any new brick sidewalks in there, just the new concrete ones.
Yeah, they
when
probably won't
redid
be
Dennett.
replaced for a long time, but that's something we can put in if that's the will of the council.
My reason for wanting to make this amendment is I wouldn't want to get into a situation, especially along Dennett Street, where you'd have brick sidewalks for a short portion, and then get into a concrete.
He's
Yeah,
made a
or you gotta
motion.
go all the way down.
He's made a motion. We need to make sure that we understand the area it includes.
Right, Your Honor, my suggestion would be to see if there is a consensus from the council to do this. My suggestion would be to table it, and I bring it back
Yeah.
to May 17th.
So without a second being offered,
Second.
we've got a second. The chair will entertain a motion to table so as to draft it.
Well, first of all, Your Honor, I need to know if, before we go to table, I'm just asking if there's a consensus to make this change, because if there is, then we'll make the change and come back. If there's not a consensus to make this change, then we can move forward with the proposal.
If we voted in the first instance, we're going to have some caveat within that motion to say that he's going to come back with a more closely drawn proposal in accordance with Rule 9, because we would need that.
Your Honor, though, but if, for example, we bring it back as proposed by the motion, and then it fails, then we have to go back and table it again to come back with another map and policy. I'm all asking is if people are interested in it, all I'm asking to say is if people are interested in having this change, then we'll make the change and bring it back to the next meeting. If we just make the change now and the motion fails at the next meeting, then I have to bring it back to the June
Well,
meeting.
without a formal vote, John, is that what you're requesting?
Yeah, that's all I'm asking.
All right.
That's all I'm
Without a formal vote, how many people are interested in making a change of this nature? And given where this is in the process, we won't entertain a 15-minute discussion. I mean, this is not a complicated decision. We need to decide. So is there a general consensus that we want enough people interested in going forward with Counselor Smith's proposed action?
No.
Well, let's have a show of hands as to how it looks before we have a vote.
1, 2, 3, 4.
5.
Okay, we'll bring it back for the May 17th meeting. The reason that we need to make sure is that we don't unintended
Right.
cut out like Deer Street and a few other places.
So now, in order to bring it back, we're going to need a motion to table.
Move table to our next meeting.
Can I say something?
Second.
Second.
Motion for table is generally without discussion on the merits. If you want to discuss tabling it, you may.
Can I say something?
Regarding tabling the motion, yes.
Well, it relates to what we discussed at our last meeting about this.
Oh, well, go ahead.
I had made a friendly amendment that we stop at Aldridge Road,
We can do that, too.
and the reason why I withdrew the motion was because the city manager talked about how he outlined the historic district, and to keep it consistent and to keep it from doing what we're doing right now, I withdrew the motion. So if we're going to study this motion, I would like to add the Aldridge Road thing back in.
We
now.
have a motion to table pending. I'm going to rule that if it's a motion out of order presently, but you can certainly make a motion under new business, and I will do the discussion on the tabling now. Okay, if there's any more discussion on tabling, if not, we'll vote to table, or not, depending, okay? All in favor of tabling at present? Please,
Aye.
let's have a roll call so that we don't, so that I don't screw it up.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne.
Yes.
Councilor Lister.
Yes.
Councilor Hetmonic.
Yes.
Councilor Spear.
Yes. Those changes.
Councilor Dwyer.
Yes.
Councilor Coviello.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Freeney.
Yes.
Unanimous to table.
Okay, with all due respect to the Assistant Mayor, I think the appropriate time under the agenda for you to raise that issue would perhaps be old business or miscellaneous. So we'll-
Tonight?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So let's have you bring that up at that time.
Okay.
Next item. Item 5.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item deals with the request for license from J. McSherry, 106 Grill LLC, owner of 106 Kitchen and Bar, for property located at 106 Penn Hollow Street, to install a projecting sign. It's pretty much, the information is before you. All we need is a motion to accept the recommendation of the Planning Board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on the sign? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? It's unanimous.
Next item we have, Your Honor, is request for license from Joseph Hickey, owner of Denerac, for property located at 19 Congress Street, to install a projecting sign. Again, a recommendation to the City Council, move to accept the recommendation of the Planning Board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? It's unanimous.
Again, Your Honor, we have a request for a license from Paul Keegan, owner of One World Trading Company, from property located at 76 Congress Street, to install a projecting sign. Again, the recommendation to the City Council, move to accept the recommendation of the Planning Board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Council Smith.
Thank you. The one thing I was just wondering on that application is the Garber travel sign above it to be removed.
Rick, you want to come down and speak to that issue, please?
Did you get Councilor Smith's
Yes, I
question?
did. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that I give you the right answer. There is, on this property, there are two projecting signs currently. One is coming down and one is staying up. A 4-foot by 5-foot sign is staying up, and a 2-foot by 1-foot sign is coming down. So I would say the Garber sign is staying up.
Thank you.
Further discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed?
Thank you, Your Honor. Next item requires a request to propose sale of pedestrian bridge. As you're aware, over the past year, the city has been in the process of reconstructing the bridge on Route 33 adjacent to the cemetery and the old stump dump. The city has received 90% federal and state funding for this project. As part of the new design of this bridge, it includes a pedestrian sidewalk and walkway traversing the bridge. The existing bridge did not have a walkway for pedestrians, and approximately 20 years ago, a separate pedestrian bridge was built adjacent to the existing bridge. Once the new bridge is built, there'll be no need for the pedestrian bridge. In fact, it needs to be removed. The contractor intends to remove the steel structure by the end of May. In discussing this matter with the Public Works Director, we've determined that there is no other location in the city that could utilize this bridge. I've attached a memorandum from Steve Parkinson relative to this. Attached to the letter from Keith Hickey, the town manager of Merrimack. They're interested in purchasing the bridge for $10,000, and they would be responsible for moving the bridge to their new location. I'd recommend that the City Council accept the offer from Merrimack, New Hampshire, to purchase the bridge for $10,000 with the requirement that they disassemble and move the bridge to Merrimack at their own expense.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next item is just a listing of informational items, and of course, you covered the upcoming meetings. I just wanted to make note that the Economic Development Commission agenda is in this packet, and also make note of the sustainability fair that is scheduled for May 8th at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Portsmouth Middle School. That's all I have, Your Honor. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that people might have.
Any questions for the city manager? Okay. Move on now to Mayor's portion of the agenda. We have 4 appointments for consideration. Gary Netto for appointment to the Building Code of Appeals. Sandra Dyka to the Historic District Commission. Charles Bradley, reappointment to the Portsmouth Housing Authority, and Carlos Castro, reappointment to the Portsmouth Housing Authority. And that's all I have. It doesn't require a vote this evening. At this point, get Counselor Smith into the ball game, and I guess he'd need to make a motion.
Thank you. I'd like to make the motion to accept the action sheet from our Parking Committee meeting held March 11th.
So moved.
Second.
There isn't anything in here that's going to require an ordinance change. I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Okay. It's moved and seconded for all purposes, I guess. And do we have any further discussion or inquiry? All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Any opposed? One abstention, or is that an opposed? It's opposed, that's right. Okay, Assistant Mayor Nobeline Clayburgh, we're under miscellaneous and unfinished business. Normally, if someone were making a motion, I'd have a Rule 9 requirement. I don't know that you're prepared to do that at this point in time, but you want to raise the issue again of that particular sidewalk. So why don't you just go ahead, and then we'll figure out.
I guess I would like to ask the council to consider not doing the brick sidewalks from Aldridge Road to Lafayette Road. Again, in an effort to save some taxpayers' money. It is covering a good part of Middle Street, but if we take that Aldridge Road to Lafayette Road out, that would satisfy some of the requests that we got from our residents.
Okay.
So I don't know if we add it to that, or how do you do it?
I think, well, how about this? If Assistant Mayor is sort of taking the council's temperature on this, if there's enough interest, let's not say in voting for this, but let's say in having it come back before us for proper motion and discussion. If there's enough interest in that, then that'll suffice. So do we have, 5 individuals who wish to see it come back in some form as a motion to discuss? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 without even trying. And so for purposes of discussion, I'll go along that 6. So we need to bring back a motion for debate and deliberation with an informational.
So let me understand this. So when I bring back the policy, I'll reflect Councilor Smith's recommendation, which seemed to have a consensus. And it appears from the hands that were raised that and I want to be a little more specific with the Assistant Mayor as to what she's asking for so that we're clear. So when I bring this back, we can maybe put this to rest at the May 17th meeting. So specifically, what are we looking for here, Assistant Mayor?
Well, I think we discussed last week that the brick sidewalk has already been laid to Aldridge Road. Is that correct?
Are you talking about on Aldridge Road, or are you
No,
talking?
on Middle Street.
On Middle Street, okay,
Yes.
because I misunderstood you, okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so what are you
find the piece of
specifically
paper now.
looking for?
So I'm thinking on Middle Street from Aldridge Road all the way to Lafayette Road.
Out towards the old Lafayette School?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
So delete the brick sidewalks from Aldridge Road to Lafayette Road
Okay,
on Middle Street.
on Middle Street, that's what you're asking for, okay.
Part of the question there
That would be from Aldridge Road out towards that, so that would be south.
Yes.
Now, are any of those sidewalks, if we know, already brick? Just, that's something we'd want information on.
Steve, you want to come down and speak to that? Because there is a provision in the policy that would allow you to waive it. It would have to come before the city council.
So let's find out if they're brick.
From Aldrich Road to South Street, there are some sections of brick that currently exist. There are some sections of asphalt. There are some sections of brick with asphalt over them. There are sections of concrete. There is quite a stretch of brick if you, from where we left off at Aldrich, all the way out to almost the intersection of Middle Road and Middle Street.
On both sides or one side?
On one side, primarily. The other side has concrete.
All right, so we'd need a little bit of information. I appreciate that you've given us this. When that comes back, that's...
Well, no, Your Honor. I think we really need to know if you want us to have the policy, because what we would like to do is have if the policy is from Aldridge Road out south, then any new sidewalks out there would be concrete.
Well, the information is important so that councilors have a concern about whether or not it's brick or concrete.
Your Honor, but I need to know if I'm going to put the map together, if we're talking about, if you want me to put that in the map as a part of the policy.
That is what we have a consensus to do. So
Okay,
yes.
then that's what I'll do.
All right. Councilor Dwyer.
Please don't call it a consensus.
A consensus to bring it before us, not to vote for what she's suggesting.
Exactly, because I think with the information that Mr. Parkinson just raised, which is why I think the city manager was raising this, I want to make sure that people aren't voting for more of a patchwork than currently exists, when the whole idea was to have the gateway be attractive.
I'm going to be very limited in allowing debate going forward on this because I think that we're going to continue to have a dog park situation on this issue, and I don't think it's in anyone's best interest. But we'll hear from anybody one more time, and then we'll wrap it up.
Since it's only 8 o'clock and it's not 10 o'clock at night, we're doing much better.
Right.
I would encourage the city manager. I guess I would like to see percentage. What percentage is brick? And I personally think it's a gateway, and we should leave it brick. But if we can get a percentage.
What percentage of what?
Of what that area is brick already.
Of which area are you talking about?
What, Councilor,
Of that
Middle
area,
Street.
of that area, not the whole, okay, I got you. Okay, all right.
we're not going to ask you to do too much, just a little.
No, I just want to be clear because I don't want to, keep coming back with the brick policy.
No, he likes coming back with this.
Can I
So
just-
what, okay.
So if
yes.
I'm clear, Your Honor,
One
before I
question.
leave the subject matter, I just want to make sure that I'm clear as what I'm supposed to bring back to the city council.
Right.
If the council wants me to bring back a percentage, do you want me to bring back the percentage from Aldridge Road going out south? Of sidewalks that are
Does that seem
available?
reasonable, fellow councilors?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
It's reasonable
Bring that.
for point of
Okay.
discussion.
I just have one quick question.
Yes.
Can I just ask Steve a question? Why is some of it brick and some of it concrete? How did that happen? I'm just,
We had a policy.
I've been here a long time, but not that long.
Good answer.
I can only imagine that at some point in time, that the brick sidewalks on one side of the street either didn't exist to begin with and they were all on one side, or they got so bad that they just ripped them out and put concrete in. I would say those sidewalks have been there since the 30s.
Yeah, and the idea was to get a policy in place, because prior to 1998, there was no policy. And so what would happen is every time we have a situation with brick, we'd have the neighborhoods coming in, and we would have a long conversation about brick. And this policy has worked very well for a number of years. So I just want to make sure that when we put a policy in place, that we can specifically give it to people so they can understand where the brick is allowed and where it isn't, and what their rights are if we choose to go forward, because we'll be putting out bids based on this policy. So we will award bids based on this policy. The reason this policy exists today is because we awarded a bid and the city council reversed the city staff on its bid, and we had to go back and then rebid the project where the neighborhood came in and they did prevail and got brick. That was the South Street project over near the Red Ginger, et cetera, for those of you that recall that. So that's why, and I apologize to the council if I'm trying to be too specific, but I really want to be specific about this, because when the neighbors come in and we tell them no, we want to basically be able to point to a policy, and we want to be able to put this project out to bid. We don't want to have to come back to the city council for every single project and say, okay, city council, do you want brick, concrete, or asphalt? We want to have a comprehensive policy in place. So that's the only reason I'm trying to be very specific about this. And we will bring back, as described, those changes, which will reflect a crosshatch from Aldridge out south, from Bond Street out towards probably
Route 1 bypass.
The bypass, and then we have the others that we have identified. We will correct that, we'll bring it forward for a vote, and determine if a vote is approved, we'll move forward. If not, then we'll bring it back again. But we'll have that back for May 17th.
And I'll just say this, just from the chair. Given that this seems to be to the great interest of many, and given that it's now been heard a few times, and now neighborhoods may well get involved, if it has to come back again, I'm going to suggest that we have a work session on this. It seems to be a burning need on our city council, and I'll suggest perhaps a work session after the budget process. But at the present time, if we make it through with this policy that's being proposed, voting down or up a portion of it, and we might have to sever a portion of it, I think that's a reasonable way to proceed, because otherwise this is something that probably is into the realm of a work session. But with that, we have the suggestion, it's going to come forward. I'll just remind people that if people approve of some of the policy that comes forward and not of other portions of it, then we're going to be dealing with motions to sever in the next meeting. So I want you all to remember that that is perhaps a likely circumstance. Any further discussion? We don't have a motion pending on this. Anything else under miscellaneous? Unfinished business? If not, we move to adjournment. If moved. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, and good night.